The woman who was breastfeeding the baby had been dead for 2.5 years. When the child was found, his skin and organs were badly decomposed all over his body, but after an examination by a local veterinarian, the child was still alive. But the vet had no surgical experience at all. But looking at the child, whose life was hanging by a thread, the veterinarian had to rely on common sense and a partial understanding of medical books to perform the surgery. He transfused the woman's blood into the baby while attaching the bones. He stitched up the ruptured internal organs, then the blood vessels and muscles. If there are not enough parts, he takes them from the woman's body. Surprisingly, the child was miraculously saved by him. He was later adopted by a journalist from England, named him Ale, but Ale grew up with a strange disease. Every night he would have the same dream, in which a woman was running away from the war with her child. When the woman was shot, the wound would appear on Ale's body, but the strange thing is that the next day Ale wakes up and the wound is healed. That day on the train, Ale had another attack. It so happened that Black Jack was also on the train. While Black Jack was examining Ale's wounds, he found that Ale's wound was obviously a gunshot wound, but he didn't hear any gunshots, and no bullets were found in Ale's body. At this point, Ale's wounds were healing at a strange rate visible to the naked eye. The fact that this is too amazing. Afterwards, Black Jack left his contact information and left. The next day, Ale urgently approached Black Jack. He told him that he would give all the money he had if he could be cured. At night, Ale had another attack. Black Jack pins him to the bed and gags Ale with a towel. Then he took pictures of all his wounds with his camera. 2.5 hours later, Ale woke up. Black Jack asked him if he had undergone a major surgery 20 years ago. Because under Black Jack's careful observation, Ale's entire body was marked with surgical stitches, but Ale said he didn't know anything about it, because this doctor's stitching technique was too perfect. Ale's stitches were completely invisible without the use of special instruments. This time Black Jack decided not to take Ale's money, but he wanted Ale to help him find this surgeon and learn from him the perfect suturing technique. In order to help Ale find the cause of the disease, Black Jack was ready to operate on Ale, but after being put under anesthesia, Ale started to have the same dream again. By this time, Black Jack had already cut Ale's skin with a scalpel and found the blood vessels. After the woman in the dream was shot again, blood spurted out of Ale's wound. In reality, Black Jack hurriedly took out a hemostat to stop the bleeding. A few moments later, the wound healed itself again, although he saw the whole process of Ale's illness, but Black Jack still did not know how to treat him. When Black Jack was at a loss, Pinocchio sang the song sung by the woman in Ale's dream. A place name appeared several times in the lyrics, which made Black Jack think that this place might have something to do with Ale's illness. He found Ale and together they went to the village of Santa Marita. As the car went deeper and deeper, Ale felt a splitting headache. After getting out of the car, Ale ran wild, came to a stairway and stopped. Walking down this long stretch of stone steps, there is a red house. The window was smashed by a tank. Climbing up the stairs, there was a red tiled house in front of him. He knew everything about this place like the back of his hand, but he remembered clearly that it was the first time he had ever been here. As he entered the house, the mother and daughter flashed through a doorway. Ali rushed up against all odds. Upon entering the room, Ale saw the photo on the bedside table. He felt so warm when he picked it up that tears flowed down unconsciously. This is the moment Ale finally realizes that the person who has been appearing in his dreams is real. At this point, Ale's disease relapsed. He saw a helicopter gunboat hovering overhead. Ale ran out like crazy. The movements of the woman in his dream and his movements matched perfectly. Finally, in front of a church, Ale regained consciousness. He tells Black Jack that this is where he was shot with the mother and daughter. This time he could see the face of the man in the helicopter clearly. Suddenly, the church doors were opened and a young priest appeared in front of the group. Black Jack immediately asked if there had been a good doctor here 20 years ago, but the priest had only been here for less th. But the priest told him to go to the cemetery and find a man named L, who was the cemetery keeper of the village. Despite his eccentricities, he has always lived in this village. But when he found the old man, El said angrily that he only spoke to the spirits of the dead here. All the people in this village are dead. They were killed by these outsiders. They took over the country and killed innocent people. Then Black Jack took out the picture of the mother and daughter. He told him the purpose of his visit. Pinocchio and Ale also at this time sang the song in his dream. After listening to El has long been in tears. Then the old man brought several people to his house. El told them the man was an unlicensed doctor. He went to a medical school abroad to study. When he was about to graduate, he saw in the newspaper that there was a civil war in his country. He gave up his promising career. He decided to return to his country. At that time, the rebels were surrounded by government troops in the village of Santa Marita. Government forces shelled the village indiscriminately. The villagers were dead and wounded. He finally began to fulfill his mission. He took in the wounded in a safe place and treated them, and so he saved many lives. From the look of the old man's conversation, Black Jack also understood that the man was L. The evidence is in L's hands burned by povidone iodine. Povidone iodine is a disinfectant used in emergencies. He didn't even have time to put on gloves. He was busy treating the injured. L did not argue with this and went on to say that the day the most intense government attack was also the day villagers were killed and injured. The mother and daughter in the photo were shot in front of the church, and the woman's name was Sandora. When they were taken to Dr. L, her daughter was instantly killed by a bullet through her heart. Although Sandora was still breathing, she knew she would not live through the night. L could only watch as Sandora slowly died. Just then, a badly burned baby was brought to L. The baby's ribs, arms and legs were fractured, and he had severe contusions all over his body. Seeing this, L decided he would not survive either, so he put him next to Sandora. A few moments later, however, he found that Sandora took the crying baby in her arms and breastfed him as if he were her own child, and finally died in that position. Everyone thought they were witnessing a miracle. Sandora seemed to be telling Elle with her life that she had to let the baby live no matter what. Perhaps it was the great mother's love that moved him, and Elle was determined to operate to save the baby. That's when he was shocked to find out the blood type of Sandora and the baby were identical, but he clearly remembered that Sandora's blood type was A and the baby's was. This may be the guidance of the gods. Elle didn't want to think about it, but thought it was a miracle again. Elle then began the surgery. If he didn't have enough organs, he took them from the woman's body. In particular, the skin on Aile's back was transplanted from her body. The incredible dreams Aile had were probably Sandora's memories, because that is the proof that Sandora and Aile lived together in this world. Soon after, Aile was adopted by a British journalist who came to interview him. After learning all this, they were ready to go up for dinner, but by this time the priest had arrived with the army. The priest had found evidence that he had saved the rebels. When Al came out of the basement, he was shot dead. A great doctor, who saved the lives of the sick and wounded, ended up in such a miserable state. Aile's illness was not cured either, but he wasn't afraid anymore when he had his attack, because it proved that he was not alone, that there was someone like his mother who was with him. Never question the greatness of a mother's love. A woman is weak, but a mother is strong. Did today's story touch you? If you also like, help give a compliment. See you in the next video.